Hey there, I have a question for you. Are you running your life like a business? Not just with your simple everyday budgeting and thinking that, oh, if I was a business owner or if my life was a business, I would be running it this way or that way. Not like that. Are you keeping track of it? Do you have a personal P&L, a personal profit and loss statement? Do you have expense categories and a net, and you allocate your net to certain savings categories? Are you making decisions based upon if I save $10 this month and then invest it over time, how much is that going to net me? I've been doing this for years. It's worked out exceptionally well for me, and I want to show you how to do it. So I'm going to dive in. I'm going to walk you through how to set up a spreadsheet to do it yourself. I don't know why I'm so serious right now. Very interested in this topic. I'm very enthusiastic. Maybe you can tell, maybe I can't. I don't know. But I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to walk you through step by step how to do it. And there's going to be budget categories. There's going to be a starting amount. There's going to be different sources of income. You can separate it. And at the end, your net is going to be distributed into different savings categories. And you're going to be able to keep track of everything. You only need one checking account, one savings account, and an investment account if you can make it that far. That's all. Three accounts can all be managed from one spreadsheet, and it can get you a really, really long way in life. It can help you accomplish all your goals. So I'm going to quit talking, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Let's go. Okay, that's me up in the top right corner, and hopefully I'm not in your way. But I'm going to show you how to build this spreadsheet right here, where you take your monthly budget categories from what is my credit card statement, but it could be from what you've budgeted in the past, or you could make up categories similar to mine. And we use those budget categories as our expenses, and we compare our monthly expenses to what we have budgeted, and that winds up here in these columns. But those are our expenses that are underneath our revenue. Our revenue is either our paycheck or our rental property income or YouTube income or you name it. You know what you make. So that's our top line. We subtract our expenses and we get to a net. The net is then subtracted or then allocated into different savings categories, which can be travel or investing or a rainy day fund. And those category balances build over time so that you can set a goal and you can allocate your savings categories appropriately to reach that goal. If you want to save faster in one particular category, if that's travel or investing, you just allocate more of that month's net income to that category and watch it grow over time. So let's get started. I've already copied and pasted my budget categories over from that other sheet, so you didn't have to watch me type them. And I've copied and pasted the budget category values too. You should go through and look and see what you've kind of averaged over the past month, and I mean past year, not past month, and insert those in here for things like entertainment or your house, your rent payment, or your mortgage payment, what you allocate towards different things here. It doesn't really matter what you have because it'll transfer to this sheet really well. Okay, so now that we have everything budgeted out over here on the left side, we're going to start by doing a simple top line revenue. So we're just going to type in revenue up here and then type in your sources of revenue underneath that. So one would be maybe paycheck, then you may have rental properties, and then underneath you may have something like YouTube income, right? So we have that there, and I like to bold that and keep it looking nice. I'm going to best fit these cells, and then we're going to type in the month. So Jan, Feb, and then I'm going to fast forward through the rest of these. Okay, so we have those there, and we have our paycheck, and I'm going to start and just make, say, about your take-home pay or what you actually get deposited into your account every month from your paycheck. Say it's $4,000. So you make $1,000 a month off of your rental properties. Say you make $700 a month off of YouTube, which would be wonderful, but who knows? Then I'm going to come down under here and say total revenue. And the total revenue is just the sum of those three things. Whoops. Equals sum. So you make $5,700 a month. Then we're going to come down and I'm going to move these down a little bit so we have some space. And I'm going to have our expenses here. And our expenses are just going to equal the categories that we put up earlier. So I'm just going to equal those. So if I change them, there they are. And then I'm going to just clean it up just a little bit here and there. So it looks a little nicer. And there we go. And then best fit those again too. So our expenses are going to theoretically equal this right here. So that's what we're assuming they will be. And then make sure we get travel in there. Then we have total expenses. Okay, so our total expenses is the sum of these right here. After we have our expenses, we're going to wind up with our net income. So this is how you operate a business. You have your revenue minus your expenses equals your net income. You always want your net income to be positive. If your net income is not positive, it means your expenses were more than your revenue. If your expenses are more than your revenue, which it may happen on some months, then you have to have some working capital in order to cover that shortfall of cash flow. And that's just how business operates. It's not that difficult to understand whenever you think of it in those terms. So I recommend working on building up to a working capital amount of $1,000 to $2,000, maybe a little more if your budgets are really high, maybe a little less if your budgets are a little low. And that way you can cover your months where you may have to spend more, or you may have a big bill that comes through and you don't necessarily have a savings category outside of your rainy day savings category, or you don't want to dip into that. Then you can use your working capital to cover a little bit of your cash shortfalls here and there, and use it for planning purposes as well. So your net income is just your total revenue minus your total expenses, and that's as simple as it is there. So now we're going to go into our savings categories, and so I'm just going to kind of go up here, savings categories, and we have travel, we have investments, we have rainy day, and then we have two other line items in our expenses here that get automatically saved every month. One of those is taxes. So taxes would be property taxes, 1099 taxes, any taxes that you either pay quarterly or you're going to pay at the end of the year, things that you have to save up for and you have to pay. So that's one. I'm going to do taxes. And the other one I have here are professional services. So I like to pay an accountant to do my taxes. Let's say that at the end of the year, it costs $600 to get my taxes prepared. Then I'm going to say $50 a month. That's just kind of how simple that one is. So I'm going to say professional services. So I'm going to bold this just so we know what that's doing. So we have savings categories, and then underneath I do one last thing. I'm going to say savings category balances. And that is the same line items as here, and this is just your running total month over month. So over here on the left side of savings categories, I like to allocate how much of my net I'm going to put into each of these savings categories. This all makes sense as you watch it develop. So let's just divide them equally. I'm going to say 33% into travel, 33% into investments, and 34% into rainy day. So these are inputs, and I want these inputs to be yellow, just so I know that I can change those without adversely affecting anything. And then that is kind of all there is to getting that done. So now let's let these formulas calculate so we can drag all this stuff across, and then I'll show you how to actually use the sheet day in and day out. So what we need to do is we need to say if our net income is greater than 0, then multiply this 33% times our net income. If it's not greater than 0, then just make it 0. That's all there is to that. So let's do that a few times. So equals if net income is greater than 0, then multiply this 33% times net income, otherwise 0. And one last time, if net income is greater than 0, multiply percentage times net income, otherwise 0. So that's all there is to that. Then we're going to take our taxes and we're just going to simply reference this cell right here, this 250. And our professional services, we're going to reference this cell, this 50 right here. So then I want to go in and sum up my savings categories. So total saved, I'm going to hit sum, and then we're going to go down to our savings category balances, and they're going to begin just referencing these cells up here, and then they will kind of increase every month, whereas our savings categories, the allocation won't necessarily increase. You could do this all in one cell with a formula, but I like to watch it. It's easier to analyze whenever you have it in multiple cells, and you can kind of understand how things are being allocated each month. I like it a little more granular than doing it all in one cell. Plus, it's easier to actually implement. The formulas are much less complicated. So I'm going to reference these all the way down. That's just a copy and paste. And that is how that works. So now I'm going to say total in savings, and that is going to be the sum of those right there. So our total in savings is our net income plus our taxes and professional services. So if you started your savings account at 0 when you started this thing, then it will be completely accurate as long as you're accurate in how you're implementing the spreadsheet and how you're documenting things in the spreadsheet. Okay, so now the few things we need to do before we can drag them out, we need to lock these cells in right here. And what we need to lock in is this C40. So that is by pushing F4 there. We need to do C41, push F4 here. And then we need to do C42, do F4 one more time. So now, as long as I haven't made any major mistakes, this will work. So let's see. I have made some mistakes. Let's go back and fix what we did here, and I see what I did already. What I did is this needs to be this cell needs to be locked in as well, but we don't need to lock in the row number. We need to lock in the cell. So what we can do is push F4 1, 2, 3 times, and then we can copy and paste that all the way down. And then now we should be able to copy and paste these all the way over without making any mistakes again. So there we go right there. What I did was I locked in the column, so whenever I drug the column, it wouldn't change columns, but it allowed me to drag down and reference all the specific cells without me going in and pushing F4 a bunch of times. If that doesn't make sense, you could look up a lot of videos on how to lock cells and what the different dollar signs actually mean. So I'm going to do the same thing here. And then I'm going to do these last few down here too. So this is what it looks like. This is how it actually works. This is how you budget as a business, how you run your life as a business. Now, let's kind of get into the details of how you would go about actually using this sheet to plan your life and in month to month, year over year, what it would look like. Okay, now that we have everything set up, then let's go through how to actually use this thing. So the way I typically do it is I go in every month and I add a column on the right side of the month that I'm working on. So I'll show you how to do January. January typically works like this. So I ignore these up here and I just adjust these manually if they're any different than what is put in. So your income should be relatively consistent. For some people, it may not be, and you may have to adjust them manually every month. And if I went in and adjusted this, and like I said, 550 here, then that's fine. It's not going to be a big deal whatsoever because I copied and pasted the values all the way down, and they're not referencing a specific cell. So let's put this back at 700. Now we come in here and we say this, my expenses here are going to equal the monthly. And then I'm going to go ahead and push F4 there for consistency to be able to copy and paste it down, minus what I've actually spent. And so it's going to be 0. And all of these are going to be 0 all the way down. I need to go in here and I need to reference it 2, 3, cell, all the way down. And they're all going to be 0. So the month I'm working on, I highlight in green. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to highlight all these in green, or I'm going to cell fill them with green. I know that's the month I'm working on. That's what I need to pay close attention to. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to highlight all these and push delete. So now these are my budgets for the month here. And then what I actually spend, I'm going to put in here. So I know off the rip, I'm going to go ahead and allocate 250 in taxes, and I'm going to allocate 50 in professional services because that is a given. I'm going to do that no matter what because those I'm saving up for in the future. So right now my net income is really high because I've only spent $300. Now a lot of other things are going to be, givens too, like home. You got to pay your mortgage. All these other things. I'm just going to go through and fill them out really randomly, and let's see where we get. So this is these. Can't travel much because of the Rona. Here, groceries are high because we're staying home a lot. I'm going to try and give away as much as I can. Not driving much. Food and drink is a little low. Fees, 97. Doesn't really matter. This is just for an example. And, well, bills and utilities, let's say those are pretty consistently high, about 500. Automotive, 100, which, one thing in here, we don't have car payments. You might want to add car payments in here. So there. So the monthly expenses total was 4506. And if we sum up what we actually have budgeted over here, I think we have 4700 budgeted. Yeah. So we came in a little underneath our budget, and you can see where. So anywhere that has a negative, that means we overspent. We went over budget. Anywhere that it has a positive, that's what you have left in the budget for the month. If this is the end of the month, then what we need to do is we need to go in and say, here's our savings categories. We allocate 33% of our net income to travel, 33% to investments, and 34% to our rainy day fund. So now at the end of the day, we transfer all of these amounts, or this total amount, $1,494, into our savings account, and it's allocated towards these balances. So after I go in and do that, then I go in and put a comment in these cells, and I say transferred on 1/31, and we'll say 21, because say this is in the future. And I'll go through and actually comment that individually on all of these cells. And that way I know I've made those transfers. And then if any of this income needs to be transferred into my checking account, I'll go ahead and do that too. So say, you're making money off of YouTube revenue, or you have money in your PayPal that you need to transfer into your checking account every month, and you'll go in, you'll insert a comment, and you'll say, okay, transferred to checking on this date, so that you're keeping everything in your central accounts. So now we can see our savings category balances here. We're good to go. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to copy this cell here, and I'm going to insert another one on the right side of February. And I'm going to shift whoops, actually let me do this a little different so don't mess it up. I'm going to click insert, and I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it here. And these are all zeros because all of my values here are still the same as my budget. Then when I'm done with a month, I go in and I say, and I make it gray so that I know I've completed it. And then to make it look pretty, I hide the column that calculates the values. These are now green. Make these cells right here green as well. And then we'll go through and delete these. So now we're working on February. And as the same thing happens over and over and over again to infinity. And what this allows you to do is a few things. It helps you manage your cash flow. You run it like a business. You keep your own P&L. And then you go in and you can see when you're going to hit the balances you want to in your different savings categories. So the few things I'm noticing off the beginning, that these savings category balances aren't calculating correctly. So I'm going to go in and fix that real quick. So the savings category balances needs to be the previous month plus what you saved in this current month. So for travel, it needs to equal 394 plus what we're saving in February. And that just needs to happen all the way down. Okay. And since we haven't saved anything here in February, since we haven't put these values into our expenses, then nothing's calculating into our savings category balances. So we'll go in and do the 250 here, and the 50 there. You can see at the end of February, we've saved $500 in taxes, $100 in professional services, and these values will go down throughout the month as we spend elsewhere. But you can use this as a motivation to spend less. If you're like, oh, I really want to have $2,100 in my travel balance at the end of February, then you just spend less. So what we need to do is we need to calculate these all the way down. So you need to do that plus this amount here. And I'm doing this manually instead of copying and pasting because of this gap that I now have. Will mess it up if I copy and paste it all the way down. I'm gonna do it one more time, and then I'll be able to copy and paste it. This plus this. So then we'll highlight all these, drag them down, and there we go. So this is your motivation. At the end of the year, if you lived this way and you were able to save, 1,000, or some months a little more than 1,000. Obviously, February we don't have our expenses put in. You could have $15,000, $20,000 saved up just on this budget alone, which seems realistic. You can probably make it fit your lifestyle a little more comfortably. You can see where you're overspending, what categories you're overspending in, what categories you're underspending in, and how you might want to allocate that in order to make your life a little bit better, more fulfilling, or accomplish the goals that you're set out to accomplish. The few other things I like to do just to kind of make it easier to read is I like to highlight all of my headlines, Control B, make those big, and then I like to put thick borders around the boxes that I'm working in with the totals also bolded. That way, you can see the important stuff, it stands out. I'm gonna do that right here. And the shortcut to do the thick border is Alt-HBT. And then total expenses, net income, gonna be bolded. Savings categories, that around, and Control B. One last time. And then I'm gonna highlight these down here. So that's the end of the video. I hope that you get a little value from that. I hope you can use it in some way to actually make your personal finance a little easier to understand. Another video that I'll get into is kind of how to make a personal balance sheet, as that's another critical financial statement that you'll use that I use to run my business. It helps you understand where your assets are, where your liabilities are. It helps you factor in debt, and it helps you factor in what your cash balances are leading up. Maybe we'll factor some investment accounts and everything else into that as well. But if you enjoyed this, let me know. If you have any questions, maybe leave me a comment, or just give the video a like, or anything else. I'd love to interact a little bit and understand what information that I can help with, how I can help people learn how to be better at personal finance, and we'll go from there. So thanks for watching and stay tuned.